Thrice Palms. For me, that's actually the one highlight that is on this album. It's kind of different-ish in a good way. I'll get to that later. It's not the first track. The first track was Only Us. In fact, the first 3 tracks on this album are pretty well the songs that they have released actually as singles leading up to this album. And then on the day of release, I think they chose Everything Belongs and I guess Beyond the Pines. And then I guess whatever. But they never released the full album in its entirety, like they did with the last one. I guess mainly because I guess they weren't as confident with that release as they were this one. Or at least we were more confident in that release than this one is what I meant to say. Anyway, and I don't blame them. Kinda, sort of. Well, going into this, and I was, from the first time hearing The Gray, it was fine, but lyrically it doesn't, and just overall I just felt underwhelmed. Like there was something to this, like they weren't bringing anything different, and it felt, or at least it felt too safe for its own good. And it was the most similar to some of the stuff before, but it lacked something thereof that those tracks did. In fact, it wasn't nearly as hard-hitting as those tracks. Because last album, y'all, most of y'all who have seen my review for that, possibly 800-something of you, if that's really how many actually did watch it. Regardless, I don't even know how much it is now. I haven't checked in a while. But that album was glorious even at that time, and it never hit me as hard as it did the night then. And it hasn't necessarily hit me nearly as hard, but it's not done, and it's more the fact that I'm just burnt out on it because I listened to it too much, and I've gained a certain form of an attachment to it because of my relationship I had with my ex, but so that might have a part in it, but not enough to really ruin my love for Thrice. Hell, it hasn't exactly ruined my love for Weezer, but it has been a while. But it's not even really that ruined my love for Weezer. It was just more the last album they had from last year, and the covers aren't doing all that much to really convince me. I'm starting to wonder if their next album is actually supposed to be a covers album at this point. But enough on Weezer. We're talking Thrice here. Palms here, 10 tracks total. First 2 were, it was when the first track that's on this album, which was the follow-up single, I started to worry a little bit, because they've not strayed away from having been electronic before. They've done this through Vyashu, and that's, I think, the one, and knowing that their goal for this album was to sound a little more like Vyashu, that was very much their signature post-hardcore a little bit that they've had at least since then, I guess, and some more piano balladry things. So essentially more So or Less kind of issue, but this album comes off way more like, to me, more a second-rate kind of issue, but yet somehow it's more interesting, somewhat more interesting, but yet somehow in my rankings now, with this album included, I almost would put it under what I already put Vishu, and also looking back in discography, I will probably have put, my bottom 3, I'd have to switch up a little more, to the extent where I would have to put Identity Crisis as their worst, and move up Major Minor. Though I'm starting to debate on whether or not if I should move Major Minor up above, why am I blanking on the album name? Come on, what's the second record? Come on. I hate when I do this. Why am I blanking? I shouldn't, hold on. I'm gonna stop this, and I'll get it, oh, never mind, I got it. Illusion of Safety. It's close one. Okay. That one I might, seeing that a major minor, I might switch it out here and there, I guess. But that's still debatable, I think. Though will say this, my top 3 hasn't really wavered. I still feel like those are the stronger efforts. Though I would almost consider Vyashu at this point. Alchemy Index. In fact, I'd say my top 5-ish. I say that because the Alchemy Index as a whole would still probably technically be number 4. This album, right now, I would say where it sits at for me is under Vyashu. But somehow above Major Minor. Overall, I knew this album had a lot to live up to after the last one, and even looking back on that record, I see some complaints on how it was too more streamlined into rock, and that whole not thricey enough, I guess, is not entirely a warranted complaint, but I still think last record, To Be Everywhere is to Be Nowhere, is still their best. They found a way to take all the aspects of their best of their efforts from artist up to major minor from where they had left off, and found a certain and somehow, instead of clashing, they weaved in together and somehow managed to sort of streamline it better into a more of a straightforward rock sound, I guess. Or at least did so in a way that was somewhat refreshing and new, yet also something that seeing and new, kind of different, but yet same. Like them. And this album does seem to try to be Vyashu to a degree, but it seems to me this album really just brings everything that's happened from Beggars up to maybe up to the last record as far as the Thrice efforts, on top of what like the last record was. For me, some of Dustin Kinzer's solo stuff, at least within that 5-year time gap. So if you liked what he did on all those, like Blood and those 3 Thrice records, past 3 Thrice records, and the past 2 albums that happened in that 5-year time gap within the hiatus, that's definitely what to expect, but in that way of coming off kind of like Vyashu, though I see Vyashu has grown enough a little bit more on me, though I kind of still, even though I almost debate on whether or not with Alchemy Index, but I have a special place in it because it was my first exposure to Thrice, and creatively speaking, and ambitiously speaking, it deserves to be a little higher than Vyashu, and I feel like they separated it out, and to some moments those albums clash. But as far as this album is concerned, the whole point of calling it Palms, besides it probably being better off the shorter name than the last album, though that album's awesomeness and the fact that the tracks' names are shorter compared to some of the earlier works helped a lot too. And it's kind of the same thing with this album. Short album title, shorter names for tracks to an extent, but it's more the fact that Only Us may make or break you to a degree. The gray might bring you back in, the dark might make or break you, but I feel like those tracks feel better when they're in the context of the album than separate. I feel like those 3 tracks don't do enough justice outside of the album itself as just singles. But Hold Up a Light, I feel, is the one song that I felt popped out the most. To me, most of these songs have that piano balladry kind of vibe. It's more so in Everything Belongs. My Soul's they do kind of still experiment a little more in that electronic vibe stuff as well. They do some piano driven and synth work here and there, I guess, here and there in certain songs, and some songs do seem a little kind of on the Imagine Dragons type of thing, but even though it comes across like it, which can be kind of but which is what got me worried. But I knew but it was enough to at least let me know. But I knew there was something to it, even within the writing, that it didn't take away from what their message. So it's handled better than what your ex-ambassadors and all them and all the other even metal bands that have done these things, that they're EDM core BFs. This is done way better than any of those bands, or at least it's handled far better and seems like they give a fuck. So they haven't stopped giving a fuck. They actually make sure their music still has some sense of quality to it. Hell, this is probably what a lot of people were hoping would. I almost think that how they handled electronic music is what I think a lot of people would wish that the new Fall Out Boy and the new 30 Seconds to Mars would have been, or should have been. At least from what I hear, I can't say much. It's more of a don't shoot the messenger on that. But for me, I mean, I think, and even some songs seem more. I think it's somewhat better, and it feels like there's some more Thrice-y experimentation going on to an extent, or at least they're more willing to, I guess, in comparison. And yeah, I really did. Overall, I mean, lyrically, there's some songs. I mean, that song like you just heard, Hold Up a Light, I really do enjoy that song, and it comes off kind of like Come All You Weary sort of guitar, but a little bit on the heavier side of things. Like, it has some sort of major minor beggars thing to it, though but more beggars and a little of that Come All You Weary thing. So if there's any piano balladry I would compare it to, more so some of what Viachu and even certain parts of Alchemy Index, more so like volumes 2 and 4 and 3 possibly, which is kind of sort of a little more what the latter two albums pre-hiatus were like. So, but yeah, overall, guys, I mean, this album just is, it's good. It does not live up to it. I do feel how some people who didn't like the last record might like this more, but if somehow you didn't for some reason, I don't know if this is going to do enough to win you over. I still somehow don't feel like it's going to win enough to do you over, but I'm not going to say, but it's Thrice we're talking about here. They still know what they're doing. I mean, and a lot of what Palms as a concept that I should have touched on earlier and got distracted was more the fact that when it comes to trying to actually work things out in peace, instead of how the difference between that of a palm and using, or that of its opposite, the fist. And instead, we just let our anger and everything get the better of us, instead of actually trying to, work out what needs to be done to work things out together. And for any of you people who watch these certain reaction channels, check out Vin and Story. Some of their stuff that they talk about is actually something that these guys have definitely talked about. So, especially if you're into the more rock and metal stuff, because that's usually what they do. Though they recently talked about the whole MGK and Eminem ordeal, I guess, for some reason. I don't know. But anyway, check them out. Even though their stuff is way longer than mine, so to anyone who bitches at me, I mean, it's not that I don't get it, but But overall, I think it's the same production too. Producers, production, and maybe mixing, master. I don't know. There's a possibility that all that is this kind of from the same involvement. But they do enough to where they don't make me feel like. I almost was worried that it was going to be bad, but then I hear it's not going to be that bad. But I knew it wasn't going to live up to the last record, because that record was. Now, thanks to the masterclass thing, I actually wanted to be willing to put it up there, but I'm almost starting to lean away from the masterclass, but not too much so, because I still feel like my top 3 is still the same at this point, even though the later 3 to whatever number at this point were the other albums, those rankings might, on top of this record, trying to squeeze that in, it's, for me, I'll give it the benefit of the doubt. For now, I gotta only give it a thumbs up. I can't say I enjoyed this like I did the last one, and it has potential to somehow has the potential to rock still, because there are certain elements here I feel some people might like more or get more out of than the last album somehow, some way, and some people might not. I think it might be a little bit of a mixed bag, but in a more positive, favorable way, as opposed to a negative way, for sure. So I just thumbs up at the time being, but with the potential to at least kind of rock, but not just enough to say it's solid, like most Thrice albums are, but in the sense that it's kind of part of the closer to the more weaker half of Thrice's discography as opposed to its stronger. I kind of knew this was going to happen the moment those singles came out, which were the first 3 tracks. And yeah, that's it, guys. What did you think of the new Thrice album? Leave a comment below, let me know. As always, guys, keep it random, keep it real, keep it rocking. I'll see you all in the next video, whatever that may be. Probably should not, if you bother to keep up with it at all. And and maybe some other albums I have yet to get to this year. Some might be classic, some are newer. We'll see what happens. Maybe I'll finally get to doing another movie review. We don't know at this point. Nobody's really caring as much about them anymore. But I'm still willing to do it anyway. So, yeah, that's about it, guys. Hopefully, leave a comment below, let me know again. And yeah. Still work on ending videos if I ever bother to try sometimes. Alright, take care, y'all. Have a good week.